Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, um, the, uh, the World Bank and the German Development Bank came together, and they had the vision for conservation of the biodiversity of the region. The plan then was that they would go into each island of the OECS and have national funds with the aim of maintaining the biodiversity and encouraging conservation of the natural resources of the various countries. So this is what the fund is about. This opportunity came along to really conserve what is ours, what is St. Lucia. My role was to operationalize a fund where nothing existed. So we're talking about developing sustainable financing mechanisms, developing policies and procedures for grant making, and even going more operational than that, getting office space and so on. So to see where we are now, to actually we are launching the fund formally, is very exciting for me. The tourism product is dependent on our natural resources. Okay, that is something I think that is lost. It's lost in the general conversation. But our product is heavily dependent on what our natural resources is and what it will be. So a conservation of that natural resource, it just makes sense for the tourism industry and through the Tourism Enhancement Fund to support conservation efforts.
The St. Lucia National Conservation Fund was incorporated in May 2016, and the goal or sole purpose of the fund is actually to provide grants for conservation and environmental management in St. Lucia. We have an endowment fund that is managed for us by the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, and the board of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund selects the asset manager for our endowment fund. The capitalization of the endowment fund was done through the fourth cycle of the Global Environmental Facility tranche, and through that the government of St. Lucia provided $4.5 million for the establishment of this endowment fund. We will be getting ready to issue our first grant, working in collaboration with the Small Grants Project, the Forestry Department, the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network, and the St. Lucia National Trust. There was a project on sustainable financing for protected area management in the Eastern Caribbean, and that was a project financed by the Global Environmental Facility. It was implemented by the World Bank and executed by the Nature Conservancy. Participating in that project were 5 member states of the OECS: Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Antigua, Barbuda, and St. Kitts Nevis. And one component of the project was actually the establishment of conservation trust funds in the Eastern Caribbean, in these 5 participating countries. The fund in St. Lucia has 11 members. 3 of these members are referred to as founding members. These founding members are the members who actually incorporated the fund under the Companies Act of St. Lucia. Then there are other members, some of whom are government members and the others are non-government and private sector. The interesting thing about this model is that it is a public-private partnership with the private sector, NGO and CBO communities constituting the majority of the members. The representatives of the founding members are from the SLHTA, the St. Lucia National Trust, and the ministry responsible for economic development and economic planning, and they constitute the founding members. The other members are the Department of Fisheries, the Department of Sustainable Development, the Ministry of Equity et al., the CYEN, that's the Caribbean Environmental Youth Network, St. Lucia chapter, the St. Lucia Credit Union League, the St. Lucia Bar Association, and the Nature Conservancy.
Well, people come by, they stop by, they have a look, they hold it.
Once the launch takes place, our communications consultant and I will be doing a roadshow, visiting as many communities as we can to talk to them about the fund and how they can apply for the fund and what are the projects that they can submit as proposals for consideration by the fund. We will consider any project that is environmental in focus, that deals with conservation, natural resource management, and the funds can be accessed by government agencies, by private sector agencies, community groups, NGOs, and even academia. For community groups, they will not have to come up with a one-to-one match. Public sector agencies and NGOs, the larger NGOs, they will have to come up with a one-to-one match, their match being in-kind contributions. In the case of the public sector entities that apply for our grants, they will have to come up with a 1-to-2 match, then the 2 being capital rather than in-kind contributions. And they have to make sure that they do not make any profits from the project that we fund. And it covers an entire range of thematic areas. They all have to be conservation, not only conservation, but also in terms of environmental management, biodiversity protection, things of that nature. We will also consider projects on education, environmental awareness, policy formulation, anything to do at all to help in the sustainable management of St. Lucia's environmental and natural resources. Each grant will range from $2,000 to $50,000, with $50,000 being the max. We are talking to different groups of people in St. Lucia and internationally to see how we can raise the funds so that we can increase the maximum to more than $50,000. And another approach that we are also undertaking is to partner with other entities. We would like to think that it's going to be different, and our communications consultant will make sure that it is different. It is different in the sense that we feel that our forms are simple. This is the first time, this is the first year we'll be issuing grants, and so this year we are basically testing our processes and procedures. But we also are thinking about establishing a group of us from within the Secretariat and the board who can go to the communities, who can work with the agencies to hold their hands and to make sure that they fully understand what it is that they are proposing, what it is that is expected of them to implement the project. It's not that we are going to give the grant and walk away. we also will encourage both the public sector and private sector agencies who are applying for grants to work with local communities where the projects will be located.
On behalf of the Caribbean Biodiversity Fund, I would like to congratulate the St. Lucia Conservation Fund on reaching yet another milestone in their development. We have been supporting the St. Lucia and other national conservation trust funds as part of the process to establish the Caribbean sustainable finance architecture. St. Lucia has been a shining star in this process and has set an example for other funds to follow. You should all be very proud of your work, as the St. Lucia Fund is one of the first to sign a partnership agreement with and receive financial support from the CBF. We know that you are already well underway to attract additional resources. We look forward to continuing to work with the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund team to make sure that this beautiful island continues to be a place where both its natural environment and people thrive.